Hey everyone, Lauren Wild, the Church Witch here. Just going to do your quick weekly forecast and wanted to drop you guys in with some messages about this week because we have 3 planets stationing retrograde this week and quite a bit of major aspects going down. So I've got my notes here. And I'll go into much more detail about the retrogrades on my retrograde video on Patreon at patreon.com/Lauren Wild. So you'll see that over there. Okay, so today is May 11th, and today, early this morning, about 9 a.m., Saturn stationed retrograde at 1 degrees of Aquarius. Okay, so, Saturn's going to stay retrograde until about December. It's going to pull all the way back to 25 degrees of Capricorn, which is where everything went down with the quarantine situation, 25 degrees of Capricorn, okay? Mercury, which is in Taurus, which is at 29 degrees right now, is in a square, which is a challenging aspect to Mars at 29 degrees of Aquarius, okay? So whenever a planet is at 29 degrees, it is the consolidation degree, meaning it needs to push the entire issue, message, whatever the purpose of that whole period of time was. For Mars, we're looking at 8 weeks. And for Mercury, we're looking at about 3.5 weeks. It's like, what has been the major themes, right? And it kind of like forces the issue to come to the surface whenever it's 29 degrees. When you have a square, that means squares are ruled by Saturn. They require dedication, hard work, perseverance. And when you push through, you get a lifelong skill. Okay, but you always get choice. You always get to decide if you're going to be like, yeah, not going to learn that lesson this time, then, you'll have to face it again some other time. But once we have consciousness, we can choose, right? With the aspect of, the time period, looking at 8 to 3 weeks, we're looking at like the quarantine. So in a lot of ways, it's like, what are the things that have been forced to the surface over the quarantine period of time? So you might want to just kind of like meditate on like, what are some of the themes, okay? And then Mercury is going to move into 0 degrees of Gemini late tonight. Actually, not late. I think it's around, what time is it? Yeah, like 5:57 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Okay, so Mercury moving into Gemini right as Venus is going to station in Gemini brings up a lot of relationship matters, okay? So in terms of Mercury entering Gemini, this is communication driven. This is innovativeness, creativity, a lot of thought process, but also duality of mind, okay? It can create a sense of confusion. And part of the reason for that I'll get to here in just a minute when we talk about Venus retrograde, so on Wednesday. On Tuesday, tomorrow, the moon's going to move into Aquarius, and then Mercury, which is just freshly in Gemini at 0 degrees, is going to trine, which is a helpful aspect. It is a motivating aspect to Saturn newly retrograde, okay? So you kind of want to like take notes about what happens because that's a communication piece that will help you understand Saturn retrograde, okay? So, Saturn is at 1 degrees of Aquarius. So you want to look at the cusp in your natal chart of the late degrees of Capricorn, 25 degrees between 1 degrees of Saturn in Aquarius, and that is the theme, okay? So look to the housing system and if you have any major planets there, okay? If you don't know what I'm talking about, get a reading with me. That's my job, and, but if you are, advanced as a student of astrology, then check out that area, okay? On the 13th, which is Wednesday, Mars is going to enter Pisces until June 27th. Mars in Pisces is not a good look. It is going to force creative projects, though. It's going to force issues of love to the surface. Lots of romance and financial pieces that are going to be coming to the surface starting the 13th. And Venus is going to retrograde starting at 21 degrees. Now, what's interesting about this is that the retrograde is going to start in a square to Neptune. And for a good portion of the Venus retrograde is going to be square Neptune, almost the whole thing. Why this is important is because, this is going to bring up issues of disillusionment in finances, in value systems, in love, in partnerships. You could just like at the end of this thing feel like you might have had like rose-colored glasses like put over your face. It's going to bring up like insecurities about your self-esteem, relationship things. You might feel like the ghost of relationship past has come to visit you. If you guys have ever heard me say don't text your ex during Mercury retrograde, seriously, don't text your ex during Venus retrograde. Like it is, yeah. So Venus retrogrades every 2 years. Okay, so Mercury retrogrades 3 to 4 times a year. Venus retrogrades only once every 2 years, and then Mars is going to retrograde later this year, and between September and November, and that's going to be interesting as it goes down in the later degrees of Aries. But what we're talking about for now is Venus retrograde in Gemini. Okay. Gemini, Venus in Gemini, I have noticed is a polyamorous placement. So, you know, you might have like people from your past come up, and you really don't, it's gonna trust me. Like I said, get on Patreon, you'll get a deeper understanding of Venus retrograde. But it is like, you know, the star that's gonna shine a light on money, your value systems, how you really feel about yourself, your sense of self-worth and self-esteem, and relationships. Okay. And don't text your ex. Okay. Now the 14th, Thursday, this is where the third quarter moon is going to go down at 24 degrees of Aquarius. Okay. This is where we're really going to be letting stuff go, especially around the aspects of Mars that has just moved through Aquarius. And then Jupiter is going to station retrograde at 27 degrees of Capricorn on Thursday. And then the moon is going to move into Pisces later that night, which always brings tears, especially as the moon is waning. It makes this go really internal, and it could come with some tears, okay? On the 15th, which is, I believe, Saturday, the sun in Taurus is going to trine Pluto, which is in Capricorn, and it's stationed retrograde, and this is going to bring up depth. Okay, it's just going to bring up deep stuff, especially as Pluto retrograded 2 weeks ago, and we're having all this stuff come up to the surface that we haven't really dealt with. Anytime Pluto stations retrograde, it brings up big pieces of trauma and shadow that really need to be seen and integrated. So, you know, trine is a helpful aspect, and the sun in Taurus, it's like stability pieces. Okay. And then on Sunday, the moon will enter Aries, and then the sun, which is in Taurus, is going to trine Jupiter retrograde. And this is a really fortuitous aspect. This is brings a lot of positivity up, which will be really nice after that sun trine Pluto. Like I said, trines are helpful. You know, there's just a lot of emotions, especially as we get into later part of the week as the moon moves towards Pisces. Aquarius is a little bit less emotionally attached, but it still has feelings. It just doesn't know how to express them. Okay. So big pieces to pay attention to are going to be tomorrow when Mercury trines Saturn retrograde. That is going to be a communication piece. And then I believe Uranus is going to trine Saturn as well this week as well. I don't remember which day that is. I need to go back to my notes. Let's see. Let me look it up really quick, and then we'll close this out. Yeah, Mercury is going to, where is it? I thought I did see that. No. Never mind. I thought it was. Okay, never mind. Anyways. So anytime you have a third quarter moon, this is a time to let things go. Third quarter moon is great for banishment, especially third quarter to dark moon. This is the releasing phase of the moon. This is when we're letting go of things that aren't in alignment with the dreams and the desires that we're trying to manifest, and we start to pull more internal. All right, guys, thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you guys next week.